Good space time, y'all! In the second part of our special On the Road episode, I catch up with Web3 builders to ask them more or less the same set of questions revolving around motivation, goals, and their work. The episode is recorded during the Lisbon Blockchain Week events, so the sound is more raw than usual, especially during the last part of the episode. Apologies for that in advance. The final part contains interviews with the Stakin Validator team, Juri from Cosmoverse and Frens Validator, and Felix from Chorus One Validator team.
For me, decentralization aims to basically get rid of the censorship and also make the borders lower for people to enter the financial system.
There's also a risk of becoming the traditional finance that we know today if we don't participate and continue to protect it from centralization.
If you don't have decentralization, then you're kind of exposed to someone like taking control over your freedom. This ecosystem is so big and it's growing, and if you're not doing anything essentially, then other bigger parties or existing big players come in and take the cake and control the system.
Before we rock it off into our next episode, here are some news from the sponsor of this episode, the Cyber Congress DAO. The foundation has started its delegations policy for validators on the Bostrom blockchain, and the Space Pussy network was launched, with 96% of its supply to be dropped to various Cosmos ecosystem chains. What's your name?
Juri, I'm from Frens, Validator, and from Cosmoverse.
LE5, what you do as if I never heard about crypto before, what do you do? And what are you trying to solve as well?
Yeah, when people from the outside actually ask me, I often do not mention crypto because then I'm getting these annoying questions all the time, like, oh, did you see Bitcoin went down? You know, these questions that you avoid to answer. But if I would answer the question, I would say that we are with Cosmoverse, which is more tangible. I would say we are doing big events, bringing communities together that are coming together in different places to celebrate, the Cosmos network. And how we also offer a place where projects can exchange the lessons learned, their knowledge, and where they can also present potential investors their products. So I think that's very straightforward. And for the validator business, I would stick with.
It's the best one to explain. Wait, now, so let's go.
I would say you might have heard of Bitcoin and that you need these gigantic.
I never heard of crypto.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's very tricky. So I would say, I think, okay, you have a bank account. So let's pretend you have a bank account. Yeah, in this situation, I would say, this has a benefit for you because you are obviously able to pay the fees and stuff like this. But most of the people nowadays struggle to actually pay for a bank account. In most parts of the world, it's impossible to set one up because most people are too poor. And what we are trying to do with crypto is that we are try to aim for a decentralized alternative so that people can have access to financial services without owning a bank account, and therefore a network structure is necessary that is decentralized, and we are building this.
Can you LE5 decentralization, and in your own opinion though, not necessarily to somebody outside of that world, but LE5 decentralization in your understanding, what it is for you, what is their end goal, how does it work?
So I think the important thing about decentralization is that it prevents censorship and forced and very centralized power. So let's say you are transferring $100 from your Portuguese bank account to a Turkish bank account, then the bank has the power to say, hey, we intervene. We won't let you transfer the money to person XYZ just because we don't like the Turkish people. Let's put it like this. This is a huge danger, and for me, decentralization aims to basically get rid of the censorship and also make the borders lower for people to enter the financial system. This is what decentralization.
Do you think for the real world, which does exist, I guess, sometimes for us anyways, do you think that the things we are discussing here, financial world, decentralization, censorship, resilience, do you think it is today a topic that is understood by people outside of this world? Do you think that there is something they not care in terms of, I don't want to point out to any particular latest events that in case people get offended, but let's just imagine as to an important world event. Is it important for people what we're talking about, in your opinion?
I would say it depends who you ask. So I think let's say in Europe or in Germany, people think that many things are granted. So I'm from Germany. So I think that most of my friends, they don't care about decentralization because they have a bank account, they can do whatever they want, they have freedom. But ask someone who is living in Africa and does not have this privilege. So I think this is where we basically start. So the only thing is that we have to teach people about like continuously. Also like now with the Fed is printing money. I mean, the Fed printed a lot of money. The stock market went up. Everyone was like so excited. Oh, the economy grows. And now we basically experience the hangover of this huge inflation. And this is all due to centralized power. But of course, it's super, super, super complex. And this is what we have to do now to teach the people that it's important, no matter who you are.
What motivated you to join crypto originally? Try to remember, though, not how you were already starting the project out, but what you already found out about crypto. What was the trigger, like thing that motivated you to, okay, I will do it? And if it was money, what other apart from money? Which I don't think it was for you, but...
Yeah, it was like, back then I was 17 or so, and I've met like my business partner Fabian, who started like crypto a little bit earlier. It was like 2017, and of course, he told me, oh, I made this amount of money in such a short period of time. Of course, as a 17-year-old who's just doing student jobs, it's like very interesting to hear from things like this. But it felt for me always like a scam. And then the cool thing about Fabian is he was like still very open, and he's open-minded, and he like taught me a lot. He said, look, that's not the case, and here are the benefits of Bitcoin, here are the benefits of Ethereum. And back then he used to give me math lessons because I sucked in math. But then I completely threw this overboard, and I said, okay, no, I want to focus on crypto because he taught me. He was like very patient. So I asked a super stupid question, but he took the time and said, no, it's like this and that, and here are the benefits. And this is how I basically entered crypto. And then in Africa, I traveled for a very long time in Africa, in East Africa. And this is where I really saw, hey, there's so much adoption potential for crypto. And this is where it really, caught me. Like I remember this one day where he really like explained me crypto in depth. And I left his house and I knew like, I don't know a shit about crypto. I don't know where I end up in life, but it will have to something to do with this. Like, I don't know. I just felt it.
You mentioned some very big things here, like, about freedom, resilience. You spoke about your motivation, about how you started crypto. In which way is currently what you do with Frens or with Cosmoverse HQ solves what motivated you originally? And do you think you're currently working on what was your original personal goal, what made you come here? Do you think, and if yes or if no, are you planning to? If yes, how?
Yeah, so I think with Cosmoverse, it's more tangible and more obvious because we go to different places in the world. We teach people about crypto. We go to different places and basically we praise the word of Cosmos, so to say. So you basically see like the first impacts like immediately. People are creating their wallets, people are interacting with the products, people are getting more free from a financial perspective and are using more and more crypto products and learn about decentralization, why it matters. So here, 100%. And with Frens, it like happens more in the background because, of course, in order for the products to work, you need a decentralized infrastructure. And we're like one of the... let's say on the Cosmos Hub, I think we have like slightly more than 200 validators in the active set right now, I believe. So we are like one of the 200s who make this decentralized backend possible for like people to use it. So these are the two parts. But you can always do more. We will figure it out.
Small blitz of short ones, but last one. We talked a lot about decentralization and about what it is in your opinion, and I agree, and I think most people will probably agree, and of course, about freedom. But we came essentially to that validators. And in your opinion, are validators decentralized today? And are validators who are essentially the builders behind a lot of the post, at least blockchains today, and not just actually, can non-decentralized entities help make a decentralized world? Or is that a paradox? I don't know. How does it work? I mean, what do you think?
I agree with your take that it may seem paradox in the beginning, but I mean, look at DAOs. Like DAOs were super overhyped this year, super decentralized. Everyone was like thinking, fantastic, we're changing the world. But very often you see that if there's too much decentralization, no one feels like in the position to do something or has the feeling, to take responsibility for something. So I think some slight centralized elements are not that bad. And if you look at also at the validators nowadays, it's they're like big companies behind it with experts that do it very professionally, because you also have to think about if you stake with a validator, the validator might get slashed. And then the question is, do you want to stake all of your savings with someone who has the servers in his apartment and, I don't know, the electricity turns off for a couple of minutes and then you are getting slashed? Or do you want to stake with someone who's maybe using centralized servers? It's less likely that a worst case scenario comes in. So I think más o menos decentralized, I would say it like this. Some elements are crucial nowadays, at least.
Small blitz, which are gonna have Bitcoin or Monero.
I used Monero once. I think you can imagine for what I use Monero.
No way.
So for using, I prefer Monero, so to
I
say.
guess paying for a VPN probably.
Yeah. Paying.
VPN, of course.
VPN, of course. Yeah, of course. Only for VPN. Yeah, for using Monero, for holding my Bitcoin, but obviously I'm a bigger fan of Atom and ETH.
It is Bitcoin or Monero. It's not Ether Cosmos. Wait a second. Okay. Distributed DAOs or small and effective multi-sigs?
Small and effective multi-sigs all the way.
No puns intended, by the way, in that questions. No things at all.
I mean, they are super effective DAOs, but we are talking about a minority here. And
We're answering the question.
And I have also the feeling, what I also want to say is I have the feeling also nowadays that people are also say they are DAO, and in the end they are basically just a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group.
And essentially, sometimes the DAO is made of a multi-sig from 3 people. Okay, last one. You are launching a product. You have a choice. Community out of 5,000 people where none of them are developers and they will never study any development, or 3 amazing developers?
Good one. I would say it depends on what your product's all about. If you're an NFT project, 100% take the 5,000. And if you want to build something that stays forever, take the 3 developers.
Everybody says that's the best question. Why? I don't like this one, but everybody says the best line. Okay, thanks, Juri. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having the opportunity to speak.
What's your name?
My name is Felix. Hi, nice to be here.
Nice to meet you, man. Tell us what you do.
I work at Chorus One on the business side. Chorus One, we're a staking provider, so I look at new networks. I work with partners to help them offer staking to their clients or navigate the proof of stake ecosystem, let's say.
Nice. So it's going to be now a bunch of questions. Try to answer them any way you want, but in the most simple way that you can. So if somebody was to say to you, somebody not from the crypto world, LE5, what's Chorus One? What do you do? What are you solving?
That is the hard one. We're helping people earn on their assets. So kind of like a bank that pays you in a savings account. That's one of the things we're solving.
And this typical VC question, what is your, not typical I guess, but what is your end target? What is the goal of Chorus One? Where are you guys heading? What is the purpose? Apart from helping to earn, of course, I understand. But let's say you achieved your goal. When will that happen?
I think it's a continuous thing. In the end, I guess we are part of these decentralized networks and part of the new internet, the internet of money. And we want to make sure that that is built in a way that serves the users and is less extractive, less kind of monopolistic than the current internet. And we do that by being active participants in the networks, running the infrastructure, but also participating in governance and educating people and then helping them steer the network in the direction that they want. So I guess the goal is never really reached because it's a kind of continuous thing, but it's what I would say.
Nice. What personally motivated you to start working in crypto?
Right. Yeah, it's a very good question. I think, I have a finance background, so I was seeing a lot or learning from there how that world works, and you could see a lot of inefficiencies and kind of just how some power structures or some corruption exists in that system, or things that I thought maybe you could get rid of with this new way of coordination that the crypto allows us. So that was really motivating. And then also just being part of this new movement, innovation, kind of technology, startups was just much more interesting to me than being in a suit in a bank and working for someone else that's already rich. So that I would say, so kind of helping achieve the goals of decentralization and just being part of this new ecosystem and contributing to its growth and to building it in the first place.
What is decentralization? But again, if you could answer from a point of view of a person who not into crypto, but let's try to imagine a world, which I hope we still can, where people are familiar with the financial world, with finance. People are familiar with more or less what a central bank is, which most people to an extent are. But what for them is decentralization? Why do they need it?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I think it maybe has like the other extreme. If you don't have centralization, basically you have centralization. That means like you are reliant on one party that will be able to dictate what you can do, what you can't do. So it's like about freedom. It's about liberty. If you don't have decentralization, then you're kind of exposed to someone like taking control over your freedom. And maybe in some cases that's okay. We live in the Western world. Like there is some centralization and we don't have it bad because it's working, but in other countries or other places, it's not like that, right? And you can see that there are still dictators around. There's still shit happening in the world where we thought it wouldn't be possible anymore. So decentralization really is like trying to have a balance of power between different parties so that something like this can't happen or happens less, let's say. So it's a goal to strive for continuously to keep the powers in check. And that's something I think worth to do for sure.
That was a very good answer. Thank you. Now, to put it all together, you mentioned what Chorus One does to help people earn money. You spoke about decentralization and about tyrannies, about the Western world, about different things, about financial things. In which way does Chorus One put that together? How does it solve that? Because this is what motivated you personally. What I'm trying to understand and I'm now going to give it away a little bit, the idea of this episode, the idea of these interviews is to understand whether what we do and what motivated us to do something is really what we are doing. So what I want to understand, you're talking about your motivation, and that's what I really like, we've been trying to get at for the past 2.5 years or whatever, over the course of these interviews, is why do people build it? What was the reason? Because nobody just wakes up and says, I'm going to build $1 billion product. You don't just wake up, fall out of bed. So how does that motivation that you were talking about, how do you exercise it with Chorus One? And how do you see Chorus One helping you as a project that you're currently involved to reach that motivation, to reach that goal?
Right. I think that's a very good question. I think definitely you can lose yourself in the goal of just getting more customers, growing the business, and maybe losing track of the things that motivated you in the first place or the things you want to achieve. I think in the end, it's a lot about the values within the company and the other team members that you have, if they have that. So like that's definitely something where we try to uphold so that people have the same kind of thinking. But in the end, it's still a business, right? So there is this conflict where we want to grow and we are like kind of part of the problem, but also not. I think in the end, this ecosystem is so big and it's growing. And if you're not doing anything essentially, then other bigger parties or existing big players come in and take the cake and control the system. So I think us from this ground up and from being born out of this revolution, let's say, us having our share and making sure that we are represented big enough is, I think, really important. So just to kind of balance the existing powers that might like enter from just kind of recreating what was already there and then having that counterforce. I think, that's how I see it. I understand there's a kind of like a little bit of a twist always there where you want to grow as a business, but you also want to kind of maintain these values. But I think we're doing it in the sense of like everything's open source that we do, like we program or like we release a lot of content that's free for everyone to read and trying to like help people understand also. So it has like a lot of elements, I think, that what we do. So I would say that. I hope that's a good answer. It's a very tough question for sure.
A very quick 3 different questions to completely random. Bitcoin or Monero?
Wow. I would say Monero actually. Back in the day, I guess I would have said Monero definitely. Now maybe it's a bit more into Bitcoin because now there's other ways to do private transactions which are like maybe based on Ethereum and doesn't need like an extra token, but you just kind of maybe privately send your ETH or USDC. So I would say maybe that made Monero a bit less useful itself, but like I guess the core idea of Monero was quite important. And I guess now Bitcoin is just like this, digital gold. I never was like super into that story, so yeah.
DAOs or committees? multi-sigs of very important people.
Right. I think they come together at currently. There's no really full DAO that isn't like, comprised of people, obviously. But yeah, some mix. It's probably too much on the committee, on the multi-sig side, and could be more on the DAO side, like that it's actually autonomous, right? And follow some. But I guess in the end, there's always humans involved somewhere, and it will be a mix of these systems. And I think, yeah, there's also a long way to go for us to really build like more complex governance structures instead of just having one token, one vote, and some multi-sigs there. So yeah, I think Cosmos is on the very forefront of that, obviously. So we need to do a bit more. We have already like cool systems, but I think there's a lot more to do.
Last one, a community of 5,000 good, cool people, but none of them are developers, or 3 developers?
I think community of 5,000 cool people, because they will...
3 very good developers.
I hope the community of 5,000 people will still be so cool that they find some developers to also join the community and will will grow that. But yeah, I guess I made my pick. I'll stay with that.
Okay, thank you, Felix. Man, thanks. Thank you for the very quick interview during Solana Breakpoint. I don't know what we're doing here. I'm joking. Hey, Solana. Thank you, man.
Thank you for having me. It was super fun.
Guys, what's your names?
Edward. Andres.
And what do you guys do?
Marketing, basically, in Stakin.
Staking at Stakin.
Staking is taken.
Chief Stake Officer.
Yeah.
Nice. So, if you were to pretend that I'm not from the crypto world, can you L5 what you do and what you're solving? What problem are you solving, guys? For somebody who's never heard about crypto.
That's a question for Andres.
That's a very good question. That's something that I try to do on a weekly basis. You know, I teach high school kids, 12-year-old kids. So what we try to relate is that staking, it's building up to be what the internet was in the early days. So it's very complicated. It can be very intimidating for someone who's outside an industry. But it's basically a new way to transact value without third party and basically protect your free speech without other people being involved in how you trade.
I'm not as good as Andres. I don't have the chance to teach high school kids. So we run servers and infrastructure, machines, computers that are going to process the transactions of our decentralized future.
I like this, but you guys mentioned the word decentralization. In your personal opinion, forget about that you're a validator for a second. What is decentralization, not to somebody outside the crypto world, but somebody who might have heard the word before? What is decentralization and what is its goal? When is it going to be decentralized? What is decentralization?
It's a very good question. And Edward?
I see, you really like that one. It's about removing third parties, removing single point of failures. The way you interact with the internet today, there's very often, just one party in between, one big entity on which most of the servers are, even one person owning a media company, and that has like censorship. And the goal is to provide where there is no censorship, no single party who can stop you from building something. No third party who's going to take massive commissions in the financial sector for something that just transacted in a peer-to-peer manner. They're just making things more efficient, more fair, more accessible, more open.
It's cool because the next question, you guys live in very different parts of the world. Well, you are from very different parts of the world originally. I don't know if you live in the same place or not the point. You mentioned a lot of words which, okay, we all understand them here and we think we understand them. In your opinion, currently, as somebody who's been in this industry for a while and somebody who's been doing what you guys are doing, do you think that those things we talk about are something people outside of this industry care about?
I think...
You say where you're from.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. Yeah, from Dominican Republic in the Caribbean. And sure, the words we speak are maybe become a bit abstract, a bit hard to digest, and maybe something that in some cases there's a lot of hype, a lot of things that may not have a real use case at the time. But certainly, if you look at the underlying technology and the potential that it can serve to those who are currently disenfranchised from the tools that are needed to economically prosper in this world, it's a different way to transact and to bring those who don't have the access to the economic world that provide the prosperity that is sorely needed. Sure.
But do people care about those topics? So I don't want to single out any particular hot topics that are being discussed right now in the world because people might get offended, I guess. Explaining it is one thing, which is very cool, and you're a teacher especially, and you're a founder of quite a big project. Do you think that people care about those things? Is it something that in daily life, something that you think they wake up and think about every day? Do they think that if this is going to change to your vision of decentralization, because you just said you subjectively what it is for you, would that make a world a better place for everybody else? That's the question.
I hope so. I come from France and now I live in Portugal. I've come from a financial background before getting into crypto. So what really kind of excited me initially is all this potential to make finance more efficient and remove a lot of the financial intermediaries out there, make financial opportunities, financial investments more accessible and cheaper. So people who care less about their finances might not care about that, but it can make a good daily life. Paying less commissions, having a more transparent and fair financial system, having the same access to investment opportunities that we deserve, a bunch of intermediaries and institutional before, and having direct access to those as an individual. I think that's something exciting that people should care about. What we see, I would say, like big use cases, probably right now not happening in France and Portugal, but they're happening in Europe. We see the situation with the war in Ukraine, where crypto has been essential to many Ukrainians, been used to raise donations, and also we see like people who've been locked out from their bank accounts, but they've been able to keep having access to the financial system through cryptocurrency. So outside of Europe, in dictatorship, it's very interesting as well. What's happening with bad military policies in South America, right? And I think that's where sometimes crypto has the most adoption. In the team, we have a colleague from Argentina, and they tend to use crypto a lot for payment in their daily life, and also to escape those 100% plus inflation rates. And maybe we're gonna get there because the monetary policy in Europe hasn't been the best lately.
It's not been voted on for a while. We need to.
I mean, like money in itself is a big use case for crypto, decentralized money.
One more and a small blitz, I promise. I know we're in the middle of a fun thing. In what way, in your opinion, what you guys are doing with Stakin? I mean, you've mentioned how you see decentralization, how these things are going to solve some issues. So in what way, what motivated you guys to start doing this, whichever was the reason for you personally, currently solves what you think, what you've been saying right now for the past 5 minutes, what you're solving? How is it helping us reach that goal? And at which stage are you going to say, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here?
We need infrastructure for all this decentralized economy we're talking about. We need bunch of different players, individuals, professional entities, small staking companies, big staking companies. We need people who are going to provide servers and infrastructure to run this new economy. And yeah, that's how we're contributing. In addition to that, by staking providers, they're also involved into governance. So they help shape the future of these different protocols. They vote on important decisions on technical developments that happen on all these blockchains. And we contribute to this decentralization by running with different providers also all around the world, by running reliable infrastructure. And you don't want to just rely on a few providers like Coinbase or other centralized exchanges for the consensus of these proof-of-stake blockchains. You want a large set of entities, individuals that you can rely on. And I guess that's how we build this decentralized future all together.
I mean, it's hard to add anything other than that, but the only thing I could maybe include in the conversation is that this requires the participation of all of us. It's not something that is already decentralized and it's going to remain decentralized. There's also risk of becoming the traditional finance that we know today if we don't participate and continue to protect it from centralization, and it requires all of us to keep building and spreading the word.
That's a very good answer, guys. I like it a lot. I promise, small blitz, and you can go back drinking and getting drunk. I'm joking. Pretending to be listening. I'm joking. I'm just gonna joking. Bitcoin or Monero?
Bitcoin, yeah, of course.
Why?
I thought it was a yes or no question.
But everybody else expanded. I know it was originally a question.
Bitcoin is the king.
You can't dispute Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Large distributed DAOs or small and effective multisigs? No puns intended in this question, not related to anything you might think about.
Small and effective multisigs.
Yeah, I would say multi-sig if you have to trust the team for sure, but they can be more effective for sure. Yeah.
Last one. If you are building a new product and you have the choice between two things, a community of 5,000 cool people, none of them are developers, and they will never study any coding or never development in their lifetime, or 3 very good developers.
Community, no hesitation.
The power of a community, I think we've all seen it here in Cosmos, is unstoppable.
Guys, thank you very, 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 very much. I'm sorry to pull you out of the networking. I'm joking, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for answering the questions, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
This content was created by the Citizen Cosmos Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating to Citizen Cosmos and help us to create more educational content.